Welcome to Thriving the Future podcast, positive solutions to help you thrive. Your mindset is everything. Plant trees, grow food, gain skills, and build community. Let's thrive together. If you like this episode, go to my Substack. That's thriveinthefuture.substack.com.
There we go. Okay, welcome back to Thriving the Future. This week I have Mantel Featherson with me. Welcome, Mantel.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So tell me a little bit about you. I met you on Substack and I really liked your Substack. I've got your new book, just arrived an hour ago. It's called Expert to 100K Plus, and how professionals over 50 own their expertise and earn six figures without a 9 to 5. So this really aligns with a lot of the stuff we've been talking about mindset and you're not defined by your job and things like that. So I wanted to dive deeper on that, and I appreciate you joining me.
Sure, Scott. I appreciate you, first of all, purchasing the book. I hope you enjoy the read. And yeah, I mean, you touched on something that's really sort of something that I've been looking at. And actually, I wish I would have spent more time on this in the book, is talking about mindset. I think the book itself is more tactical, I'll say. It's more strategic in terms of how you actually take your expertise, pull it out, extract it, and position it and make it effective and make it useful for the marketplace. But one of the things that I think is important is, as you said, is mindset, and it's a struggle for folks, especially folks that have been in careers for 20 to 30 years. How do you shift? How do you, take what you've been doing? You've basically been an employee, you've been sort of taken care of, and now you're being asked to shift and leave all that behind and focus on actually building your own thing. So it's not an easy transition. I think, as you pointed out, mindset is going to be a key function in that, because I think one of the things that we do have is that we have skills. I think there's
Hmm.
no question that folks over 50 have a ton of skills and experience that can be leveraged. But the thing that'll probably block you from being successful in building your own thing is whether or not you think you can do it. Right. And
Right.
so if you don't have that belief that you can do it, then you'll succeed. So that's going to be a key point, a key part of doing this, of building your own thing. So yeah, I do want to focus on mindset, but also talk about tactics as well. And so how you can make the transition as we go forward into this new world of work, where it's kind of a war zone out there if you think about it. Layoffs are
Yeah.
happening in the tens of thousands. It seems like every other week. Major corporations are just laying people off, and because they figured out, hey, we don't need as many people. We got
Hmm.
AI, we got different technologies that can replace people, which may or may not be the case. I guess we'll find it in over the next few years, but that's how they're moving right now. So I think folks in their 50s and beyond need to be prepared, and this is just my way of providing a roadmap to do that.
Yeah, it's great. So my situation, I'm a project manager by day, right?
Yep.
And so new CIO comes in and wants to change to a program model or a product model, and says we're going to move away from the traditional PMO. I go for an interview, and it's obvious that I'm not I'm over 50, so you know,
Sure.
and then if you're not a contractor, there's so much in project management over the last 10 years that has become almost completely 100% contract. And so if you direct apply, you're most likely going to be passed over regardless of your age for a contractor because it's less risk. And then, out of everything that's posted, there's probably they would companies most likely would probably hire perm from the contract pool. So, we've got not only are those ghost jobs out there that's posted, but you may be competing against somebody that they already is a known resource, right? So how do you, if in that scenario, what would you recommend? And then all of a sudden, hey, it's either I'm facing layoff or I've been laid off. What's the first step you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I would say, and if we're talking about mindset here, is really to understand that it's not about you, right? I think that's the
Mm,
first thing. I think a lot of us go into this sort of blame thing, like, okay, if I would have done this differently, or if I would have done this differently, or if I would have, connected with this person or done this. So
hmm
a lot of it is really sort of just thinking through, okay, not necessarily dwelling on what you could have done differently, but not blaming yourself, right? And saying, okay, I'm still, highly qualified. I'm still someone that, has skills. I have experience and I'm still valuable. So I think that's
hmm
the one thing is to be kind to yourself and think through, okay, what are the things that I still bring to the table? Because these layoffs nowadays are not even really about, at least the way I see them, they're not really even about performance anymore. It's more
Right.
so about cost savings. It's more so about, we want to go in a different direction. We want to change our strategy. And as a result of that, we don't need as many people. So it just
hmm
becomes, it's becoming more of a numbers game versus a performance thing. And then even if it is a performance thing, a lot of times the deck is stacked against you anyway. So you have a manager with an axe to grind. They're looking for any little thing. Be like, hey, this person's not performing. They've been 5 minutes late. Three times this week. So hey, that's going to be a ding, and we're going to put you on a pit for that. So there's that. So I would say like don't go into it blaming yourself, but also I guess the second thing would be is to assess your skills. What do you have like as an inventory? Like what is it that you have, and maybe that kind of sets you apart. You start thinking about, well, these are the skills that I have. This is the experience that I have. When I talk about expertise in my book, I talk about it from the standpoint of three things. So you think about your knowledge. It's first and foremost, your knowledge is really, what you learned over the years, maybe through formal or informal education. And then there's your experience. That's what you've basically accumulated over the lifetime of your career. So if you've had 20 years, you may have worked for one company, you may have worked for several companies. A lot of people work for 4 or 5 companies in the span of 30 years. So you've accumulated just, an incredible amount of experience. And then the third thing is perspective. And this is actually the most important thing. So when you think about your judgment. So these are the things that you might look at, your career, or you might look at a situation in your career and say, okay, I've seen this play out before. And this, my perspective allows me to almost sort of see what's going to happen because I've seen this same movie before. So I've seen this action before, this project before. I've seen people do this before. So I can tell you where the potential pitfalls are. I can explain how to avoid those things. I can also talk about the resources that are needed. And so it's helpful for understanding that. So I would say take that inventory and really build from there. If you can do that, I think that'll put you a leg up on other people. And it's not necessarily about updating your resume, but it's understanding what you bring to the table as an individual professional and whatever role you're in. But just understand that, and then start to package that and say, okay, how do I explain my story? And this is going to be helpful if you're going for a job or if you want to start your own business too, because most of us are starting businesses based on our expertise anyway. So if we understand what our expertise is, it gives us another point of reference for building a successful business because then we can explain how we're different than our competitors or our competitive professionals. So I would say the two things that you definitely want to focus on is understanding your skill set, but also being kind to yourself in terms of don't look at it as something that I did wrong for why I lost this job or why I'm not getting promoted or what have you. So that's how I
hmm
look at it.
Yeah, and I like at the same time you take it beyond experience and you start talking about that expertise, that combination, because so many people are like, oh yeah, I've done this or I've worked here or I've, and it's like it's like a timeline instead of what problem am I trying to solve? What problem can I solve for you? And one of the things at my last job, I was I was part of the interview team for new people. And we would ask the last question would always be, why should we choose you over someone else? And you could see just the wheels lock up. Some people were offended. They were just done. And then some people were like, why would you ask me that? And and but it's a slam dunk. All you got to do is talk about what separates you from everybody else, and that's the big king. I mean, when you've got AI reading resumes, it's going beyond resumes now, and it's not even really about resumes. So it's what problem are you solving?
Yeah, it's definitely that. It's definitely what problem you're solving. It's an interesting question. I mean, that is sort of a standard interview question is why should we choose you other folks?
Hmm.
But if you think about that question, it's really getting to the heart of what we all know as sales, right?
Right.
So you think about sales, and we're always doing that. I think one of the things that people struggle with when they want to transition from corporate America to a standard 9 to 5 job into an entrepreneurship endeavor is they think, well, I'm not a salesperson. I'm totally
Hmm.
not a salesperson. I can't do that. And if you think about what you're doing every day in terms of your job, you're selling all the time. You're basically selling, and it's not so much that you're like saying it like you're a used car salesman. It's like you're trying to be persuasive, and that's what we all do. We try to persuade people to our point of view. I'm persuading you to hire me. That's why you asked me that question. So when you say, okay, what makes you different? It's basically saying, okay, what makes me different? Why would I be a valuable asset in this role? And you have to just explain that. I mean, your resume is trying to do that. So now you just have to actually verbally explain it. So I think people get caught up in this fear of sales. But again, it's sales in the sense that you're just doing it to persuade and to get people to your side. And if you're doing it effectively, it's actually about delivering quality. Like you're delivering, something that they can say, okay, well, this is great. Because really the best salesmen are actually folks that are selling you something that is going to help you. It's going to help you improve your life in some way. So you don't
Hmm.
even have to really sell it. It's just basically saying, "Hey, this is the way this thing is going to help you." And the same thing with a job. So if I explain, I'm going to be more effective than the other candidates, and I explain it persuasively, that means that you're getting something of high value. So you're just really just telling people how valuable you are in the course of a job search, and you're doing the same thing if you're building an entrepreneurial endeavor as well.
Sure. And then if you move past and you're not being say, say you're not going for a full-time position, but you're going for a contract position, you want to be more of a consultant for your experience or your expertise
Mhm.
than be a staff aug. Staff
Mhm.
aug's just going to be there until they're done with the project. And, usually the recruiters lie into you anyway, about how long that's going to last, you know.
Yeah.
So by being part of, we're going through a merger and acquisition, we need you to come on and we need you to lead us through this. You're not going to have a job at the end because, you're going to roll off and then you can position yourself dollar wise, whatever else, for that. But that mindset is so much of a change, right?
Yeah. I would say so. I mean, I think in the same way, when you say staff aug, I definitely know what you mean there. But again, you can change people's perceptions. Like everyone comes into something and they say, okay, well, this is the role,
Hmm.
right? This is what we expect of you. Um, but if you go into that role and you understand the expectations, as long as you understand what the expectations are, you can set yourself up to exceed those expectations, right? So you can say, okay, well, this is what they're expecting. This is baseline. Okay, how can I go above that? And it's not necessarily saying that you have to put in 60 hours when everybody's working 40 hours, but what are things that you can do to make yourself stand out? And again, it's thinking about it from the standpoint of how much value can I offer to this role, right?
Hmm.
I'm not necessarily a person, I'll just be completely honest. I mean, I wrote the book primarily because I feel like the 9 to 5 is not the road that we should travel especially as we grow older because there's just too much churn there.
Hmm.
We have to fight against ageism, we have to fight against AI, we have to fight against younger competitors and so cheaper competitors most of the time as well. So
Right.
I don't feel like the 9 to 5 is the path for the 50 plus professional. But if you're determined to kill down that path, then the best way to do it again is to build that sales mindset and also to build how can I exceed expectations. And it's not like I said, it's not going, doing like crazy things like going, 60 hours or when it's 40-hour work week. But what are the small things that you can do that make you stand out in terms of, a manager's view of you? So and again, it's being proactive. Those are little things, but being proactive, being accountable, being someone who makes sure that the job gets done, someone who leads. Those are like the things that people are looking for. And it's interesting as you think about the things that I just mentioned, but those are the same things that make you a successful entrepreneur. as well. So
Hmm.
if you're thinking about it from, I want to continue to grow my career in the 9 to 5 space, the same things that are going to make you successful now, because before now it used to be, can you follow directions? That used to be really it. Can you follow these directions? Can you do this to the letter? That used to be what jobs are. But now leaders are looking, or managers and executives are looking for folks that can lead. They want people that can actually pull a project over the finish line. So you can do that. You can demonstrate that you can do that. You're probably going to set yourself up more so than the person that's just going to be an order taker and it's just going to like follow directions and just sit there and punch the clock 9 to 5. Those folks they want to get rid of. But people that are showing that proactivity, those are the folks that they want to keep. So I would say, again, that initiative is going to help you in your career, but it's also going to help you if you want to pursue an entrepreneurial venture,
Hmm.
which I would recommend. So,
Yeah. So how do you transition to the entrepreneurial venture then? You mentioned several things in your book. Let's dive a little bit deeper into that.
sure.
So you've got your 6 ways. Talk a little bit more about that. And it's not just like the 9 to 5. I mean, personally, I don't want to be competing with these folks for the 9 to 5, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I have basically a 4 step process for getting into entrepreneurship. So the first one is to extract your expertise. I'll mention all 4, but then I'll just talk about each of them individually. So,
Sure.
um, it's extract your expertise, position your expertise, package it, and then distribute it. So it's really a 4 step process, and it's really about how to really transition out of the 9 to 5. And like I said, I wish I would have spent more time or more energy on the mindset piece in the book, because I feel like now that I've sort of talked about it a little bit more and I've, talked to different people, there is a struggle in terms of making that transition. But at a tactical level, it's like you have to understand what your expertise is. I mentioned before, your expertise really circles around three things. It's knowledge, experience, and perspective. If you can nail those 3 things, you can actually get those 3 and then boil it down to really the essence and say, okay, what are the key things that I know that sort of set me apart? And also, what are the key things that make me come alive, right? It's not so much that I have expertise, because, I had a ton of expertise in change management, right? That's my background. But and I still sort of do it, but it's not necessarily something, it's not the thing that really I'm passionate about, right? So my passion is really talking and teaching about entrepreneurship. So that's the other piece. So making sure that you also are aligned to something that you're passionate about, because when you think about entrepreneurship, and it's just like doing a change job, you're going to be doing it for a long time, right? If you're successful, you're going to be doing it, and people are you're going to get known for it. They're going to ask you questions about it, and you're going to talk about it a lot. So you need to be into it, if you're going to do it. So you need to be into that thing. The second part is really packaging your expertise. So once you nail down what that expertise is, it's really packaging it, and so that people can recognize you for what it is, right? They can say, okay, well, Mantel, he's focused on entrepreneurship, converting your expertise into sellable assets. That's my thing. But
Hmm.
someone can immediately recognize what it is that you're about. So that's really the packaging piece. So they know, like, you could almost equate it to the personal brand. Like, what is your brand? And I like the term because everybody knows what it means, but it's very difficult to build a brand within the 9 to 5 space, right? It's just
Right.
very difficult, because once you're seen as an accountant, you're an accountant. Like, you could say, hey, I'm a rock star accountant, but everybody's saying they're a rock star accountant. So you have to be specific, and it's easier to do that outside of the corporate space, but it can be done. It's just a little bit more challenging. The third part of it is positioning your expertise. So this is actually for who is your market? Who are the folks that you are going to target for your expertise, that you're actually going to say, okay, I built this thing, whatever my entrepreneurial thing is, my expertise is, I built this specifically for you. So those are people that you're going to be talking to like every day. That's my market. I want to go after those particular set of people, or that one avatar, that one person, and say, okay, hey, I have something for you that can help you. And again, we're talking about the sales, but it's not so much selling it from the standpoint of, hey, I want you to buy this crappy used car. No, I want you to buy this high quality service that I'm selling you, that I want to give you, that's going to change your life. That's going to help you transform and be better, right? Whether that's making more money, whether that's being more attractive, whatever it is, but you want to make sure that you're targeting the right people. Um, And then the last part of it is distribute your expertise. So this is what you and I do on Substack, right? You think about what the content that we write on Substack. It's stuff that we might write on LinkedIn. It's actually making connections individually with people, right? So it's not just about, hey, I'm broadcasting stuff, but you also want to just talk to people individually about what are their problems, what are the things that keep them up at night, understand what their pain is, because that's going to help you formulate a much stronger offer. So
Right.
and I talk about there's many ways to distribute your expertise. You can do it through courses, you can do it through community, you can do it through consulting, coaching. There's various different ways you can do that. But at the end of the day, you still have to talk to people. You still have to understand what their pain points are. And once you've done that, then you'll be able to build a much stronger author. So that's really sort of the layout of the four different, I guess, pillars, if you will, for the way I would imagine you would actually build your expertise and distribute it.
Hmm. Yeah, what really so I've had your book for a couple hours and I cracked it open. One of the things that stood out was the what's the bridge from pain to purpose,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And then what and that goes back to the what kind of problem are you trying to solve, but not making people a problem, not, or whatever, what's your pain, right?
yeah, yeah.
And then what do you bring to the table to help them to get to that purpose, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's really a lot of that. Like, you think about, and that's really the essence of business. You want to address people's pain points because then they're more
Hmm.
willing to buy, right? And they're more willing
Sure.
to seek out your solution. It's not something that you have to necessarily sell because they're already sold on it once they recognize that you recognize what their pain is. Like, this is the issue that I'm having. And it's like,
Hmm.
I see your solution as a way to resolve that pain. So it's really understanding that. And that's the reason why you have to talk to people. You can't necessarily assume what their pain is. You have to talk to them. And everybody's, pain is different, but in a general sense, but you can understand enough on one individual to sort of build out an avatar to understand like what the overall pain of this particular market is, right? And say, okay, this is where I can craft a solution that could be supportive. And the other thing I would say is like you want to figure out how you want to distribute it. So what is your best way of doing that? So some folks, they're more introverted, they're more, I'd rather just not be dealing with people face to face. They may want to do courses and you might want to build courses as opposed to doing coaching or consulting. But I would say the one thing that you will have to get over is talking to people. Like, you may be an introvert, but you need to understand what your clients are after.
Hmm.
And the best way to do that is asking them questions, is understanding like what their needs are and understanding what challenges they've had in the past, how they tried to resolve them. Once you get a better understanding of that, then you can build a solution that makes that really solves that issue for them.
Hmm. Great. So what's the first mistake that people usually do when they're trying to transition to this and then they're trying to design their offer or their revenue stream?
Yeah, first mistake. I
Or
would say it
first
always goes.
hurdle instead of
Yeah,
mistake, right?
yeah. I would say the first challenge is really to understand um, who you're going after. And
Mm.
first, what you offer. What is it that you offer? Because oftentimes, what you feel like your offer needs to be may not be what people want, right? Like, you
Right.
may have something where, I'm building something because it's and oftentimes here's what I would say is that oftentimes we're pretty much our own first client. Like, you think about you think about this thing, and you say, okay, what are some challenges that I've had 2 or 3 years ago, right? That I've overcome, right? Or maybe I'm still
Hmm.
dealing with. Those are often challenges that you've experienced that are experienced by others. So that could be a first point of reference. But oftentimes folks won't think that way. They'll think I need to do something really innovative. I need to do something that's never been done before. And if you're thinking about it from the standpoint of I need to do something super innovative, something super, super creative, oftentimes you'll stall because you're so busy thinking about the idea. You're so busy thinking about what it is that I need to build that no one has ever seen before. And let's just be clear. There's really not much that people haven't seen, right? There's just really not much out there that no one has ever seen before. So don't get caught up in like building a solution that's so unique that it's differentiates you from in the market. Because oftentimes, if you're doing that, it's probably something that you really can't explain. And then
Mm.
it's something if you can't explain it in like 10 seconds or in a 30, in a less than a 10-second pitch, then most people are just going to tune out. They're not going to understand what you're trying to do for them, and you're not going to sell anything. So I'd say, like, don't focus on the uniqueness of something. Focus on how you can help people. What is the thing that you do? What is the thing that you're passionate about? And how can it help someone else? And if you can align those two things, you're off to a good start. But again, I would not try to build something that's like so unique, some unicorn business. Most of the time, it's going to take lots of money for you to get it off the ground. It's going to require
Mhm.
investment funds and all of that. And so, you want to get something simple. Simple sells very, very well. Um, and people just sort of underestimate simplicity. So you just, try to keep it as simple as possible.
Right. That's
Yeah,
good. Yeah, I've heard one of the advice is talk to yourself where you were 2 years ago.
exactly. Yep.
And then
Yeah.
you could sell to that person, what that avatar or whatever of what you were 2 years ago, where you were at.
Yep. Yeah, especially if you did something that is, you have a unique thing, especially if you can talk about it in a framework way, right?
Hmm.
Most people are aligned to like frameworks. So they're like, okay, what's the step-by-step process that you're bringing me through? Because that is something that we can all, especially with a visual, we can say, okay, all right, I see the steps, and that's what you're going to take me through. And visuals are, are super important. If you have a picture, pictures speaks, way more than words. People will read, but it takes time for them to really digest information when it's in text form or written form. But when you see a picture, they can, you can process it that much faster. And so I say, okay, I can see these steps. I can see your short framework, maybe it's 3 or 5 steps. And I can see, okay, this is how you're going to take me from where I am now to the new transformation that you're going to bring me through. So if you can, go through that in a few steps and in a visual, that's going to be all the more powerful in terms of
Yeah, that's
sharing the
great.
message. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So you do coaching and also consulting, right?
Mostly coaching. And I'm working on a course as well, but yeah, mostly coaching. I look at coaching as a little bit more coaching is sort of getting this bad rap in my mind. So I do it, but it's more so advisory work because coaching is sort of got this connotation now where it's like, hey, I want to coach you, but you do all the work, right? So
Oh.
it's like I coach you, but the coaching is more so like asking questions, and then you do the
Hmm.
work, and I kind of take you
Hmm.
through it. Whereas I think now the transition is that coach is more of, I'm going to advise you through something. So I'm going to take you through a process, and we're going to work through that together. So, um,
Hmm.
I mean, I think coaching has gotten this bad rap where it's like people just sort of sit on the phone or, on a Zoom call for an hour, and I just listen to you kind of like, oh God, this is, I'm having a tough time in my career, and I might give you a piece of advice here, but then I'll ask you a question. Well, why is it like that? What are you doing? What are you doing to change the situation? What could you do? What are your strengths? That kind of thing. So, and I think that is sort of where the coaching space has sort of landed right now.
Hmm.
But I think now, as we're moving forward, we just need to make sure that we give people real solutions that solve real problems versus having sort of, and I'm not saying that those discussions, those more therapeutic discussions aren't necessary. I think they are actually, but that shouldn't be the crux of your program. It shouldn't be about therapy. It should be more about how do we take people from point A to point B.
Right. And I like how you reframe that as advisor, right?
Yeah.
Because then you get away from the coaching almost does seem like it's me telling you what to do or whatever or
Yeah.
things like that. And if you help guide them, I'm going to help you get from here to there, then that really helps, I think.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think again, because coaching, I mean, I've seen programs that are 10, $15,000, and I've seen these masterminds that are a lot of money.
Oh
So
yeah.
when you're charging folks a lot of money, you need to provide a real outcome. It's not about
Hmm.
like, hey, I'm just going to sit with you for, a weekly chat. It's got to be tactical, it's got to be strategic, and we have to make sure that we have an outcome and that you are actually getting the transformation that you expected. So that's
Hmm.
that's sort of how I approach it.
Yeah, so you mentioned masterminds. A lot of folks set their communities up. as a mastermind, and
Mhm.
then and then they and then everybody is basically helping each other, or
Mhm.
even supporting each other and things like that as well, right? What do
Yeah,
you have going, or what's your vision with that?
yeah. So I would say like the mastermind is a great thing. I would say like the mastermind is actually more so for the folks that have gotten over the initial sort of, okay, this is what I'm doing, and I've
Hmm.
I've gotten some traction, I've gotten some success, and now how do I go to the next level?
Hmm.
Whereas at my level, I'm talking about it from the standpoint of you haven't even started yet, almost like you're basically brand new, you're a babe in this. So my level at this level, it's more about, okay, how do we get you from, basically a newbie all the way up to an experienced and, entrepreneur that has actually gotten some traction and is making some sales. So that's my level. And then, and I focused on that. I focus primarily on helping people really sort of adopt that new mindset and shift from their work. And I would say like part of what I do is not necessarily making people say, okay, you got to quit your job. If you have a good job, stick with it. It's great.
Right.
You can win with that. But if you have a job that's not so great, this allows you to build something on the side that you can say, okay, if my job should ever disappear, I have an avenue that I can actually
Hmm.
build out. And so I think as as a smart careerist at this point in our careers as 50 plus people, it's for me, it's tough to rely on one source of income, right? And you think
Hmm.
about this, and relying on that one source could be taken away at any time. And we've seen that. Like we've seen Amazon lay off what is it now? 30,000 people, I think now over the course of the last 2 years. They laid off 14,000, I think in 2025, and they just laid off 16 last month. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like about it's almost 30,000 people, and they're still continuing to do it. If you think about how they're doing it now, they're being a little bit slicker, where they've revamped their performance reviews. I think them and Facebook are doing this now, and that's just another way to get rid of people, right? Like
Right.
this review of performance is like, okay, we're going to make it much tougher for you to be rated as a great worker, but we're going to make it much easier if you be rated as a bad worker. That means we can get rid of you. So
Yeah.
so I mean, there's different ways that they're trying to do it. So I would say like you don't want to be in that situation where because I'll be honest, I've been there where I've been stressed about my job. I think we've all been there where we're working in a 9 to 5 and we're trying to be proactive. We're trying to be good customer service, good customer service oriented. We're trying to be that. And we're just trying to do everything we can to keep our jobs, right? We're doing everything we can. And it's out of our control because someone else that doesn't even know you is probably making a decision about you on a spreadsheet and saying, okay, we got to get rid of this salary. We don't really care. That person has a family, mortgage, all that. So we don't care about any of that. We just got to get rid of the salary. So it's always out of your control. So it makes you vulnerable when you're in that place, especially when folks, you have a younger manager and they're looking at you like, well, I don't really like this person. I think they know too much and all this other stuff. So there's so many variables within the 9 to 5 that just make it challenging to stay within it. So I would
Hmm.
say like for anyone that is in this space, think about how you can build something of your own. Really, really think about it because it can be an opportunity that you can actually probably make more money and you can work the way you want versus being a pawn within the 9 to 5 space. So yeah, so that's how I would approach it. Just don't look for one source of income. Try to build multiple sources of income. Start a Substack. Go on LinkedIn. Build there's so many different ways you can do this. So you can start a Substack and be on Twitter. Twitter's paying for people to write now, so they're actually paying for articles. Substack, you can build a community. You can actually charge people. You can build. You can charge them monthlies. Charge a monthly rate on that. You can build that up, and that could be your source of income. You could, there's Medium, they're buying articles, they're paying you for writing. So there's so many different ways now that weren't available before that, and we have so much value in terms of what we've learned and lived that we can share that. And that could generate a source of income for you. So I would just say, just think about how you can make money outside of that 9 to 5. And so that'll reduce the stress that you're in. If you're in a situation where you don't know if your job is at risk, it can reduce the stress and it can actually make you a better worker because you're not as stressed about it. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah.
That sounds good. So what are some of the ways that you leverage AI to help in your entrepreneurial business?
Wow. So AI is it's an interesting question, right? Because I think that AI is a super powerful tool if used in the right ways. I've
Right.
seen, I don't like the term. I'm sure you've probably heard this term AI slop. I hear that term quite a bit,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Especially just perusing, the different social media channels. I see it a lot on LinkedIn. And I really like the term. I feel like the slop is not really AI's fault. It's really sort of the person who's operating its fault. So it's really
Hmm.
kind of a mix of human and AI slop, but they always seem to leave the human out because AI is not posting it for you. You're putting it
Sure.
out there. So you can review it, and make it better. So, but yeah, I would say it should be a big part of any business. I look at AI as sort of the internet of the 2020s, right?
Mhm.
Um, because if you think about the internet back in the 90s, right, it was sort of the wild, wild west where you could build a website and, had these things called RSS feeds and, we had
Mhm.
blogs at the start of that. That was sort of like a new frontier. We were all out there trying to build stuff. Everyone was out there learning HTML, learning CSS, all those different, languages, technical languages, C plus and all that. And it's sort of that. So you learn those skills, and then if you were really industrious, you could build a business around your blog, right?
Right.
Whereas AI is giving you that same leverage, where you can build something on your own that could make you money, right? You could build a blog, you could build a website using Lovable or any of these other sort of agentic tools, right? Replit. So you could use different tools to help you build a business. So for me, I use it, sure, maybe like to generate content ideas, not necessarily the right content for me, but I use it for, to generate content ideas. I use it to build different things. I'm actually looking at building an intake for my expertise extraction. So I'm looking at
Mhm.
something like that as an opportunity for me. Using it to actually help build courses as well. So it can, if it's used in the right way, it could really streamline your operation and it can make you that much more. It can be a force multiplier for an individual that's building a business. You don't have to build a big team anymore. You don't have to hire writers anymore if you don't want to. You could do that. But there's so many different ways in which to use it. And I think if you don't use it, you're putting yourself, and I would say this regardless across the board, entrepreneur or employee, you're putting yourself at risk if you don't know how to use it. If you feel like, well, I'm not going to use it because it produces slop, or you have this kind of unhealthy bias. In order to be effective as a professional, and this is regardless if you're an employee or an entrepreneur, you have to be ready to learn. You have to
Mhm.
be always in this learning mode where you're like, okay, what are the new things that are out there? What are the new tools that are out there? If for nothing else, to try to, again, stay competitive in your own job, but also just to build something that would make you successful outside of that job. So I think you always have to be in this learning mode. You have to be open to the opportunity. So you try something, you learn how to use it, and you use it, again, to build something for yourself. So I I tend to look at it as a plus. I know folks are
Right.
looking at it as a minus. They say, well, don't ever use AI. And I think that's very, very short-sighted. It's almost like saying back in the day, don't use the internet. Like if we said that today, we were like, what are you crazy? Like, how are
Sure.
you not going to use the internet? But I think we're getting to that point where we have to understand how to use these tools. And if we learn how to use them effectively, we can make ourselves that much stronger as a professional.
Right. Yeah, I use it to evaluate my brand and my call to action on my website.
Hmm.
And then I use it to create, I don't use it for art because the AI art's kind of creepy. But I use it to create PowerPoints, which I don't like creating PowerPoints. And
Yeah.
and I use it for creating diagrams or whatever for uh, um orchard layouts and things like that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
as well as
Yeah.
and then I use it to work for meaty minutes and bounce. I like using it to challenge my ideas, which is
Yeah.
you have to really train it because AI will be complimentary towards your ideas,
Oh
And
my
then
gosh, yes.
it'll say, well, you need to double down on this. And I go, is there a market for that? And they go, no, you know. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I don't want to do that. But so yeah, and like you were saying, I go and I say that, okay, I need to know how to, set up a carousel at the
Hmm.
top of my website, right?
Yeah.
And, I don't know how to do that with, what are my options with the current plugins and setup I have with WordPress. And,
Yeah.
and then it'll tell me what to do. Sometimes it's wrong, but and,
Hmm.
and like you were talking about with an intake, um, I used the Microsoft Power Automate, I think it's
Mm.
called, and I had Claude tell me how, and Copilot tell me how to use it to set it up, the
Hmm.
intake, and now I can Substacks replace my podcast hosting, so that saves me $100 a month.
Oh
The
yeah.
the email in Substack has replaced the email service I had, so that's saving
Yep.
me like $100 a year, or
Yeah.
not, yeah, $100 a year, both of those. So so I got $200 a year I've saved, and then being able to implement other things like that is
Yep.
so what is missing here? And it'll say, like my tree nursery business, it says you need to sell bundles. If you need two or three trees to pollinate, then you should have a bundle price
Yeah.
and things like that. So little things like that, and then taking that, and it all adds up. I use it as an advisor basically, or as an assistant.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to use it. I think that again, the assistant thing is awesome because you can use it as a way to test your ideas. And you can also use it to teach yourself new things, right? A lot of people
Hmm.
kind of just dismiss like, hey, because AI is good in the sense that it can compile information. Like
Right.
it does a really good job of compiling information. And you can say, okay, well, and I was reading a couple of folks on Substack that like to use AI and they're very transparent about it. And they're like, well, I might use AI to draft something for me. And then I'll feed it stuff that I've written previously and be like, hey, this is my voice, mimic my voice, and then, write my stuff for me. So, you can do that for sure. It can save a lot of time. I know there's a huge influencer. I shouldn't call him an influencer. He's bigger than that. But he was actually anti-AI for a long time. And this is,
Hmm.
I don't know, you might follow Dan Co. Have you heard Dan Co?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So I was reading a couple. I like to read a lot of his stuff. So as millions of other folks do. But for a while, for a strong while, he was anti-AI. And then recently, in some of his more recent articles, he talked about how I was wrong about, basically he didn't say it explicitly, but he was saying I was wrong about not using AI. Now what AI is doing for me is that it's actually saving me time and it's allowing me because he said now I used to write my articles, now I actually speak them. And so AI is able to I'm able to dictate and it's able to just put the stuff down for me. And that saves me time to be able to produce more high quality stuff, right?
Hmm.
So I mean, someone like that is coming at you and said they were really like, no, don't use it for this or that. Now they've changed their perspective. It's telling you that, that first of all, AI is getting much better than it was 2 or 3 years ago, and it's just only going to continue to get better. And then you can still maintain the quality of your work by using it. But again, it's not just you just saying, but it's a collaborative effort. It's not just you saying, hey, AI, just go write this for me. It's
Right.
really you saying, okay, this is my idea, these are the key points that I want to make. This is the structure for it, the outline for it, fill in some of the details, maybe help me do some research around it. If you're doing that sort of effort, then it's collaboration. It's not AI just spitting out slop, as they say. So
Right.
so I would just say that, you just want to be, you want to think about this critically when you start to use it. And I think some of the use cases that you just mentioned are definitely within that space.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So Mantel, tell us how folks can connect with you on Substack and some of your other areas.
Yeah, so I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm actually starting. I've been on LinkedIn for many, many years,
Hmm.
but I'm actually starting to be a little bit more active on it as of late. I'm on Substack as we mentioned. We're both on Substack. You can always find me there. I have my own website. It's called FutureProof50. If you ever want to check that out, it has some of the stuff that I don't write on Substack. I put it on my website. You can also purchase my book on my site as well. So yeah, I mean, you can check out my site there. I would definitely, look me up on Substack and then LinkedIn as well. Those are the three main places. I'm on Twitter, but I'm still sort of ramping up Twitter. But you can only do a couple of these social media platforms at once. It just gets too overwhelming. So I try to focus on one to two. But those are the two places you can actually find me.
Yeah, definitely. And the tone between Substack and Twitter is so much different that it
Yeah,
you have to really adjust. You
yeah,
can't exactly post both ways.
yeah.
Someone said something the other day, and I said, "Hey, dude, this ain't Twitter."
Yeah, Twitter is a whole different, and it's funny, we're still calling it Twitter, but it's now called X, obviously. But it's just a different thing. But it sounds like it's trying to be more of a publishing focus now. Again, with
Mhm.
long form articles, long form is having its sort of recurrence now, whereas long form was the big thing back in the early internet days, but now it seems to be making a resurgence, especially with
Right.
stuff like Substack. So I hope that stays. Substack is sort of shifting. They're actually seem like they're focusing more on video now, which is
Yeah,
fine, I guess. But I'm not big on video. But hey, we all have to sort of learn and adapt as we go. But we'll see how it goes. Just got to stay adaptable, and flexible, and just willing to keep learning. And I think we'll be okay.
sure.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Mantel.
Thank you, Scott. It was really nice talking to you. So I hope to see the podcast soon, and hope you wish you much success with it.
Thank you.